Paige, Charlotte, Sasha Banks, Bayley, Asuka, Charlotte again. Holding the NXT Women's Championship is usually a precursor to title success on the main roster, but it also means you'll often be badly booked for several years before you get one. And of all those former NXT champions, it's arguably Ember Moon who's had the most wasted potential. After dropping the belt to Shayna Baszler in 2018, Moon made her official main roster debut the night after WrestleMania 34. Somehow, in the 18 months following that, she never had a proper storyline. I'm not counting losing over and over again to Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville in happier Fire and Desire times. Moon's last appearances in WWE saw her lose to Bayley at SummerSlam 2019, embarking on a losing streak through the following month, eventually ending up in the most under of undercard spots, chasing R-Truth and Carmella around for the 24/7 title. And in one of those chases, she ruptured her Achilles, putting her out of the 2019 WWE draft. She hasn't been featured on programming since, but she was a guest on last night's Fox Studio show WWE Backstage, where she revealed that injury might actually be the end of her career. The more and more I sit back and look at everything I've done and would redo, I think about my injury currently, realizing that I may have a career-ending injury. I'm coming back from the hardest injury, and I might not have a chance to redeem myself of all the things I wanted to do and I want to do in my future. Hopefully this is just Moon leaning into an impossible comeback storyline, rather than admitting her career might indeed be over. Especially because, as she told Booker T's podcast when she first suffered the injury, it was for such a pointless skit, where she was called in specifically for Raw despite not being booked, just to make up bodies in the chase segment. Before we get on with the rest of the news, I just want to say a huge thank you to this episode's sponsor, The Muscle Hustle. The Muscle Hustle. The Muscle Hustle. The Muscle Hustle is a wrestling game for your phone like no other, mainly because it combines wrestling with both pinball and RPGs, as you collect, train, level up and evolve hundreds of different wrestlers into your own super faction, and then flick them at your opponents. Download it and get addicted to the very satisfying multi-hit combos, or go even further and master the game by diving deep into the gameplay and meta for the perfect combinations. Because The Muscle Hustle is a wrestling game designed for wrestling fans by wrestling fans, not only can you collect and manage your stable of wrestlers, but you can also decide who to promote and who's a babyface or a heel across single-player campaigns and real-time PvP. This is a real labour of love, as members of the original development team have taken The Muscle Hustle over and are running it on their own as Bandio Games. So support them and support WrestleTalk by downloading The Muscle Hustle now and get involved with a dedicated community of players on Discord and Facebook. Come join and do the hustle! The Muscle Hustle! The Muscle Hustle! Last month, WWE suddenly fired or furloughed a reported 40% of their workforce to ensure they'd still have their most profitable year ever, because Vince McMahon is actually Scrooge McDuck. All of those released, like Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson, Rusev and Eric Rowan, were immediately taken off TV. All apart from one. Drake Maverick. Possibly revealing how haphazard those releases were, Drake Maverick had only been announced for the NXT Cruiserweight Championship tournament just a few days beforehand, publicly declaring he was stepping down as 205 Live's general manager. I forgot that was a thing too, to focus exclusively on in-ring wrestling. A rare commitment to already laid plans, NXT kept Maverick in the tournament, using the heart-wrenching video he tweeted out on learning he'd been let go as storyline material. He's repeatedly said in promos that he's going to win the tournament and thus the Cruiserweight Championship, where he'll either leave with it or bargain for his job back. So he either leaves the company and the storyline use of his real-life firing feels very exploitative, or he stays and it feels like a cruel slap in the face to all those who actually lost their jobs. WWE's latest step has made many fans feel even more uncomfortable with the storyline, where a YouTube video called The Unbreakable Dreams of Drake Maverick shows him getting sent his release papers. This is what you call an overnight from Stamford, Connecticut, where you get your release paperwork. I haven't opened it yet because I've still got some things I want to take care of. When you see me open it, that's it. That will be when I finally accept it's done. All of the top comments call out WWE for leaning too much into real life, with Robert Smith writing, "This feels very exploitative of Drake and his release. It's a slap in the face to him as well as everyone else who was released the same time." Hafiz Saeed Norman Ali posted, "WWE should be ashamed of themselves for exploiting Drake Maverick's release like this. Or if Drake's firing is just a work storyline by WWE, this is so unbelievably cruel to all the other wrestlers who genuinely got fired amidst the pandemic." And Louis Chavez simply comments, "Imagine firing someone and still making money off them." Although some do like the blend of shoot and work. What do you think about WWE using Drake Maverick's firing as a storyline? Let me know in the comments, where I'll be replying to people. Maverick and the other main roster wrestlers released by WWE on the 14th of April will be free to appear for other promotions in 55 days' time, when their 90-day non-compete clause expires. Until then, WWE are able to use them while they're still being paid. But Vince McMahon might not just still have plans for those released wrestlers. There's speculation he also might not be done with the XFL. The XFL was Vince's most public and costly business mistake, losing over $70 million when it first launched in 2001. McMahon relaunched the XFL following February's Super Bowl, but after just 5 weeks, for Steve Corino reasons outside of his control, the XFL shut down for good again and filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. This move wasn't without controversy. McMahon had promised to invest $300 million over the next several years to his partners, but he pulled the plug, putting in nowhere near that amount. And consequently, the former XFL commissioner, Oliver Luck, has sued Vince personally for wrongful termination. And now, according to The Athletic, this whole story just took a Vince Russo-level swerve. Some believe this was all a deliberate ploy by McMahon so he could cheaply buy the XFL back once the pandemic is under control. I'm pretty sure this is the same storyline with Vince and the whole NWO poison. The report claims XFL president Jeffrey Pollock has been calling venues in St. Louis and Seattle, two of the league's most popular markets, about reinstating their lease agreements, and the XFL's creditors seem to believe McMahon is positioning to buy the league back out of bankruptcy. This would allow Vince to wipe all debt from the XFL during the pandemic and re-emerge on the other side with a blank slate. Speaking of slates, what did WWE have planned for their pay-per-view slate for the rest of the year? Nailed that segue. Thanks for your support on Patreon. Your best friend, Neon Pal et. WWE's next pay-per-view Backlash will take place on the 14th of June, featuring the greatest wrestling match ever. Extreme Rules will happen on July 19th, presumably with the even better greatest wrestling match ever. And August 23rd, SummerSlam is next, with the most greatest wrestling of wrestlingest wrestling matches of all time ever to determine the best at wrestling in the world. And WWE is hoping from July they'll be able to hold these shows outside of the Performance Center. While Boston has banned all mass live events up until Labor Day, prompting WWE to look for alternative states for SummerSlam, California Governor Gavin Newsom has announced sporting events in the first week or so of June, without spectators and modifications and very prescriptive conditions, can also begin to move forward, implying Extreme Rules might be able to go ahead in its already booked Sean Ross Sapp Center in San Jose, because winning Quizzlemania twice automatically gets a stadium named after you. But what about SummerSlam and beyond? The very reliable WrestleVotes has revealed what WWE's original 2020 plans were before total lockdown began. Below is what WWE had scheduled for pay-per-views after SummerSlam, to be determined if it remains as is. Clash of Champions on the 20th of September, Newark. Hell in a Cell the 18th of October in Atlanta. A Saudi pay-per-view on the 5th of November. Survivor Series the 22nd of November in Dallas. And TLC on the 20th of December in Chicago. We'll have to wait and see if WWE can go ahead with large-scale events in those US cities, but international travel to Saudi Arabia seems a lot less likely. I can't wait for Crown Jewel 2020 from the beautiful, progressive city of Jeddah, Florida. It's not just about getting fans safely in attendance though. It's also the logistical feat of moving wrestlers across the country in a time where there are still heavy travel restrictions, especially the international border with Canada, which has just been announced will remain shut for another month of non-essential travel, meaning wrestlers like WWE's Bobby Roode and AEW's Evil Uno and Stu Grayson of the Dark Order will be unable to work. And our own plans for a wrestling show were scuppered by Steve Corino back in March, where we instead went ahead with our No Fans Monday show with Will Ospreay to raise money for out-of-work independent wrestlers. We initially planned to put on a show with fans in June, but that obviously can't happen. Rather than postpone the show indefinitely, all those who had tickets have been refunded over the last several days. If you have any questions, please contact us on support@WrestleTalk.com. This past weekend, former WWE star Shad Gaspard was reported missing after a strong rip current pulled him under the surface while he was swimming with his son at the beach. Lifeguards attempted to save him, however he instructed them to save his son first before another strong wave rolled over him. Now, despite a search lasting over 24 hours, Shad has still not been found. Shad's wife, Ciliana, has released her first statement on the incident, expressing the family's gratitude to the first responders who rescued her son and to the lifeguards, Coast Guard, divers, fire and police departments for their continued efforts to help find their beloved Shad. We are hoping and praying for his safe return. WWE have also released their first statement on the matter, sending their thoughts to Shad's family. The Coast Guard has suspended their search to find him, but the LA County Sheriff's Department has continued its own efforts. And in more unfortunate news, 411 Mania's Larry Sonka has passed away. Larry was very well respected in the wrestling industry for his unbridled passion for the business, which Kevin Owens tweeted about. The passing of Larry Sonka reminds me so much of my friend Michael Ryan's passing. Both Larry and Ryan wrote about professional wrestling in such a way that it was impossible not to feel their undeniable, unmatched passion for it simply by reading their words. A GoFundMe has also been set up for Larry's daughters during this hard time, which will help support them moving forwards. You can check that out in the links below. The world is pretty rubbish right now, so escape real life with Quizzlemania 8 tonight, which will feature special guest Inside the Ropes' Kenny McIntosh. Click the video on the right to set your reminder now. And why wasn't Jon Moxley the Shield's breakout star in WWE? Click the video below that to watch Adam Blompier and Luke Owen discuss. I've been Ollie Davis, and that was Wrestling Jam That Jam.